Guys, welcome to 5-Minute Math. This is Carrie Reinhardt. Today I'm going to be looking at long and synthetic division. If you're following along in the text, this is Algebra 2, Unit 2, Lesson 4. I went ahead and put up the first example that I had from the text, and I'm going to go ahead and do that one so that you can follow along in the text and on here if you'd like. Now, just a quick review before I start this. Long and synthetic division is used when you're dividing polynomials. So if you're dividing by anything other than a monomial, okay, in this case we're dividing by a binomial, we're dividing by x squared plus 3. So if you're dividing by anything other than a monomial, which would just be like 2x squared, in that case you can just divide each term individually. But in this case, you have to use either long division or synthetic division. Now, you could not use synthetic division in this case if any of the terms in your binomial or trinomial, whatever you're dividing by, if they're higher than 1, you can't have more than just x to the first. It has to be a linear factor. Okay? If it's not a linear factor, like it's not here, we have an x squared, that's not linear, that's quadratic. So since we're not dividing by a linear factor would be something like x plus 3. There's no square there. Okay? So since we're dividing by a quadratic factor, we have to do long division. So when we do long division, we set it up like you would remember from elementary, where what you're dividing by goes on the outside, and what you're dividing into goes in here. Now, one thing you have to watch out for in both long division and synthetic division is if any exponents are skipped. So, for example, we have x to the fourth, x cubed, x squared. This is really x to the first, and then a constant. So nothing skipped there. If something skipped, you have to put in a placeholder, and I'll show that to you. So if you could do it here for the x squared plus 3, but really it's what's underneath that you've got to put the placeholder in for. Okay? But if you'd like to, we could put a placeholder in out here, because x squared, the next thing should be an x, and then the 3. Okay, but you can't just put in an x, that changes things. So what I would do is I'd put in a 0x as a placeholder. So if we were missing something up here, we would plug in a 0x to the third if we were missing x to the third. Or if we were missing just x, we'd plug in a 0x. But again, you only worry about that for underneath. So then I'm going to start dividing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the first term underneath, 2x to the fourth, and I'm going to ask myself how many times, or what is 2x to the fourth divided by x squared? Sometimes it's easier to look at it this way. Well, if I divided here, that's like 2 divided by 1, which is 2. And then when you divide with exponents, remember you subtract. So x to the fourth divided by x squared would just be x to the second, because I did 4 minus 2. So I get 2x squared. I need to line that up with the x squared here. So I'm going to put the 2x squared right there. Okay. So first step, divide, which we did. Next step, you multiply just like you would with if you were doing this with numbers. So I'm going to multiply 2x squared, this, by this whole thing. Okay, so just make sure you multiply it by both of those. So I'm going to do 2x squared times x squared, which should be 2x to the fourth, which it should be because it should match up with what we just divided it by. And then I've got 2x squared times 3, which would be 6x squared. I'm going to put that 6x squared here because you want to line up like terms. So I'm going to put that under the x squared. And now we need to subtract. Now be careful, you need to subtract this whole thing down here. So if I'm going to subtract that whole thing, I need to distribute the negative in. Okay, and the easiest way most students like to do this is they just change this to an addition sign, and then all of these change signs in here. So I end up with x squared minus 6x squared, okay, which is going to give me a negative 5x squared. I've got negative 3x cubed, and then I don't have anything to subtract, so I just bring down that negative 3x cubed. And then the 2x to the fourth minus 2x to the fourth, that cancels. Okay. So now I'm going to divide again. So I need to do this, negative 3x cubed divided by the x squared. Well, that's like a 1 there, so negative 3 divided by 1 is still negative 3, and x cubed divided by x squared is just x. So that goes right here, minus 3x. Notice it lines up with the x here. Okay. And now we're going to multiply again. I've got to multiply this negative 3x times this whole thing. So I've got negative 3x times x squared. That's negative 3x cubed, which it should be. It should match up there. And then I've got negative 3x times 3. Well, that is negative 9x. I'm going to put that right here because it doesn't match up with that negative 5x squared. So I need this 5x. I didn't bring it down a minute ago, but we need that. So I'm going to bring that down because that's the like term with the negative 9x. And now I'm going to subtract. So I've got to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to change this to an addition sign, but everything inside here changes signs. So I really end up with 5x plus 9x. Let me get a different color here. Sorry. So 5x plus 9x is 14x. I don't have anything to subtract here, so bring down that negative 5x squared, and that's a positive 14x. And then these cancel. So now we are to dividing again. And you could go ahead and bring down that 8, because we're probably going to need it. So I need to do negative 5x squared divided by x squared. So let me erase some of this, get it out of the way. So I've got negative 5x squared divided by x squared. Well, in this case, the x squareds just cancel, and I'm left with negative 5. So negative 5 goes up here. Notice it's directly above the negative 8 constant. And now I need to multiply negative 5 times this whole thing. So negative 5 times x squared is negative 5x squared. And negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Again, I'm making sure to line it up with like terms. And then I have to subtract. But remember, then I would change this to addition sign, and all of these would change signs. All right, so I get negative 8 plus 15, which would be a 7. Now I'm running out of room here. Then bring down that 14x, because there's nothing to subtract. So that's 14x plus 7, and these cancel. Now, once you get to the very last term, the constant, which we did, okay, we don't go any further. We just need to write our answer out. Okay? So now, to write our answer out, I'm going to erase this. My answer is on top, that 2x squared minus 3x minus 5, and we need our remainder, which is this 14x plus 7 down here. So to write the final answer in the correct format, I'd write this, 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 plus, and then we're going to have a fraction. You put the remainder, that 14x plus 7, over what you divided by, the x squared plus 3. This is our final answer. And I know this can be tough. Just, keep practicing. It will get easier. All right, you guys have a great day.